Actually, the earliest picture that I have of my father is when he's about 2 years old, so it would be about 1926 or 27, and he's standing on the operator's platform of the steam shovel that stripped off the overburden. So, you know, my family has quite a history going back here. The 1901 census has my great-grandfather as the foreman at the Patterson Quarry, so we've been associated with the quarry since at least 1901. And somebody in every generation has worked here. So I've been here in 1967, and I was 7 years old at that point. So I remember when everything was working. And there was lots of blasting and everything going on over there when I was a little kid. Everything used to shake several times a day. And occasionally rocks would land in people's backyards and that sort of thing if they had a particularly good blast going on over there. They weren't as careful in the 1960s as they are now with blasting. Yeah. The kilns are really the symbol of Stonewall's past. Stonewall's really been an industrial town for most of its life until quite recently. Now it's mostly commuters who live in Stonewall because it's relatively cheap and peaceful to live here and drive to Winnipeg. But in the old days, the quarries and the people who were employed in them were the economic mainstay of the town, and the kilns are kind of all that's left of that industrial heritage. They would blast the rock into manageable pieces. These were then broken up by men with sledgehammers into pieces anywhere from fist size to head size, loaded into 2-ton bins. They would haul the bins originally with horses over to the base of the kilns, later with trucks. And when I was a kid, it was an old 1950 Dodge truck with a flatbed, kind of like they use for hauling dumpsters now. And so they would be brought over to the base of the kiln. They would hoist the buckets of rock up and dump them in the top of the kiln, just like Santa Claus going down the chimney. Somewhere up here, just above the level of the fire doors, there's a steel grating which holds the rock up above the fire. And so you build a fire here, the rock is dumped down the kiln and sits on a grate above the fire. And the limestone, as it's heated, is converted into quicklime. And it falls down through the grate and enters a clean-out area below the fires. Gradually they ran out of rock here. The major product, lime, was used for disinfecting outhouses and making whitewash. Consequently, the market was really shrinking in the 60s. Plus, labor was becoming much more expensive. You couldn't find people who wanted to work cheap swinging a sledgehammer here. So for a variety of reasons that all came together in the 60s, the quarry became unprofitable. So here you can see that quite a bit of the fire arches have fallen apart. It gives you some idea what's going on inside. And you kind of get some idea of what's happening with the freeze-thaw cycle here too, because the bricks are all loose and falling apart. As you can see, there's starting to be some major cracks in them. So it isn't something that can be put off indefinitely.
Well, all we've been able to do to this point is have a study done on how secure they are. What we were advised, it's kind of like ask the question you may not like the answer, is that they are deteriorating and it's now a safety factor. So we had some remedial action done with fencing to keep people away from them within reason, and also to tighten up almost like putting a belt around your waist to keep the kilns together.
The other problem is that most people in the Stonewall, like in the town of Stonewall now, don't have the old historic connection that old families like mine do. People move out here because it's a nice, safe, quiet, pleasant town to live in, and they commute to Winnipeg, and they don't really feel any commitment to spending millions of tax dollars to fix up the kilns.
Unfortunately, for the amount of money that it will take to return those to semblance of soundness, it's almost in the order of at least, I would say, $800,000. And you know, part of the job that I have and my council is it's a balancing act. You have to choose which things are of higher priority. And so with things that we've done in my term, the Veterans Memorial Arena and the curling rink and the soccer pitches, and now we're into actually rebuilding not a Quarry Park Interpretive Center, but a Quarry Park Heritage and Arts Center, for which we've had to go into quite a bit of borrowing. It's just that we're hearing that the townspeople would sooner have us do those kinds of things and also keep the taxes within a reasonable amount.
It's interesting when you live in a commuter town. It's very different on the weekends. If I were to come into town, say on a Wednesday, it's mostly older people that you see on the streets, retired people, farmers that have come in from the area, say people that are 50, 60, 70 years old. Whereas if you go downtown today, on a Saturday, all the commuters are here that are normally gone during the week, and I wouldn't recognize anybody. Oh, wow. Yeah, and so there's an awful lot of people in town that you know, are interested in the present day stuff and not in the history. Nobody wants to see the kilns collapse, but at the same time, there's an awful lot of people who'd like to see more sports facilities or something rather than spending money here, and that is a problem. Those people don't have the attachment to the local area that the old families do.
I mean, we actually interviewed some people and they said, well, we'd sooner have a swimming pool before rebuilding the kilns. That heritage is an investment as well. It's not just all about recreation.
The kilns unfortunately don't make any money. They're a great symbol of the town. They're what people think of when they think of Stonewall, but they don't produce any revenue, so it's kind of hard to justify spending that money.
Anything like the rebuilding the kilns to semblance of their original state, it'll have to be, as we call it, angel money or outside money that'll partner with the town and help, you know, showcase rather than just maintain, help showcase the kilns.
They've been standing here for 100 years. They haven't fallen down yet, so the thinking is, you know, we can leave them a few more years before anything happens.
It's still on the stove, it's on the back burner, and we're doing what we can, so it's not as if we've completely walked away or don't recognize the importance of it.
They need major work, and it can't be put off indefinitely, but as long as they stay standing up for a few more years, it does give us a little bit of time to do some planning.